Hello friends, how are you all? Welcome to our CSS training session. We are going to talk about the dimension property, which is used to control the size of web page elements. First, let's talk about the width property. It sets the width of an element in pixels. You can define it using either percentage or pixels and units. Now I will open my code editor and show you an example. Here I have set the width to 300 pixels and the background color to light green. As you can see, the width is applied here and you can also see the background color. If I change the width to 100 pixels, notice how the size of the element changes. Next, if I increase the width to 500 pixels, you will see how the element becomes larger. Next, let's talk about the height property, which sets the height of an element. Just like the width property, you can define the height using pixels, percentage, or other units. Let's see an example of the height property. Here I have set the height to 100 pixel. As you can see the height of the element is not 100 pixels. If I change the height to 50 pixels, notice how the height becomes smaller. Similarly, if I increase the height to 300 pixels, you can see the height increases and the element becomes taller. Now, let's talk about the maximum width property. This property sets the maximum width of an element, meaning the element will not exceed this width. For example, if you set max width to 50%, the element will take up of half the size of its parent container but will not get any bigger. I will show you an example. Let me paste it here. In this example, the max width is set to 50%. The background color is light blue and the border is 2 pixels solid navy. As you can see, the element is taking up 50% of its parent color container's width, but it won't expand beyond that. Now, if I reduce the size of the parent container, the element inside it will shrink as well. Maintaining the 50% width, this is how the max width property works. Similarly, on a web page, you can set a height of an element. If the content inside the element is larger than the max height, the content will overflow. Let me show you another example. I will copy this example and paste it here. In this case, the max height is set to 150 pixels. The background color is light and the border is 2 pixels solid orange. The element will take up to 150 pixels in width, but if the content inside exceeds this width, it will overflow. I have also set the overflow property to auto so the element will show a scroll bar when the content overflows. For example, if I increase the content a bit, you can see how it grows. As I increase it, the content expands. Now notice that when I set the overflow property to auto, the content starts overflowing beyond 150 pixels and a scroll bar appears. Now let's talk about the minimum width property. The min width ensures that the width of the element will not be smaller than a specified value. For example, let me copy the example and paste it here. In this case, the minimum width is set to 200 pixels. So even if the content is smaller, the height will not go below 200 pixels. You can see that the height is fixed at 200 pixels. Similarly, the minimum height property works in the same way to prevent the elements width from being smaller than a specified value. For both width and height, you can also set the auto value, which allows the browser to automatically calculate the dimensions based on the content. This means that the element will adjust its size according to the content. Let me show you an example. I will copy it from here. Now you can see that both the width and height are set to auto. The element adjusts its size based on the content, which is why the content fills the available space according to the dimensions. When it comes to responsive dimensions, you can use percentage. For example, if you set the width to 50% and height to 50%, the element will take up of half the size parent element. Here's an example. I will copy it here. Now if the width and height are both set to 50%, the element will take 50% of the parent's width and height accordingly. Now let's talk about a unit called VH. The VH viewport height unit sets the size of an element related to the size of the viewport. Similarly, VW means 1% of the viewport height, VH means 1% of the viewport height, means the smaller value between the viewport width and the height. Let me show you an example. I will copy the code from here. As you can see, the element takes up the full size of the viewport. If you set it to 50% of the width and height, the element will take 50% of the viewport's dimensions. And you can resize it like this. So friends, today we learned about responsive dimensions in CSS. If you have any questions, feel free to ask in the comments. Keep smiling and happy coding. Thank you. Hello friends, how are you all? Welcome to our CSS training session. Today we are going to talk about the dimensional property, which is used to control the size of web page elements. First, let's talk about the width property. It sets the width of an element in pixels. You can define it using either percentage or pixels unit. Now I will open my code editor and show you an example. Here I have set the width to 300 pixels and the background color to light green. As you can see, the width is applied here and you can also see the background color. If I change the width to 100 pixel, notice how the size of the element changes. The background color remains the same, but the width becomes smaller. Next, if I increase the width to 500 pixels, you will see how the element becomes larger. This is how we can set the width of an element using the CSS width property.